This week on the Baseline Podcast, with college football season and the NFL season right around the corner, Josh and I thought it'd be a great time to start a series of episodes that will be breaking down different conferences and divisions of either the NFL or college football. And it's going to be a fun ride. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben. That's Josh. And Josh, the time has come. The time that we've been waiting for since, well, at least I've been waiting for since that dreary December 31st night when I had a heart attack of Ohio State not winning versus Georgia. But we won't go into that because I will cry. No, we are here. Obviously, there's been many things going on. Josh, before we jump into the college football talk, which is what we're here for, that's why it's been so long, but it's here. It's finally here. Josh, how has your week been? How's the weather over there in Ohio? I'm going to be joining you over there in a few weeks, but how is the weather? And is it enjoyable right now, or is it kind of because it's been very hot here?
We've had some hot and humid days over here, and some rain, so it's not been the greatest of weather. But current events wise, man, I mean, we could be spending this episode talking about the home run derby and the MLB All-Star game.
I know.
We could be talking about the UFC fight card that happened Saturday, one of the best that I've seen in a while. We could be talking about Pat Fitzgerald and the whole Northwestern situation, but we're scrapping all of that to talk about college football previews and NFL previews. Going to the West Coast first today, but I know you did want to touch on a little bit on the Pat Fitzgerald situation before we get into all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I first off, I do want to say that you look like either a straight up country singer or a white rapper. One of the two right now. Like that's the vibes you're giving right now. Like, you know, the country singer, maybe a
rapper now.
I don't know if we're offending people by talking about this. I don't care. But we are here.
Anything but a country singer.
Okay, let's not harp on it too much. No, in general, I do want to talk about the Pat Fitzgerald, and we're both going to come out and say, like, we're not going to go into detail on things that are going on. If you watch the news or read the news, you know what's happened, what the allegation is. But Josh and I both have been in locker rooms, and for me, I've been on the coaching side where I was a student assistant coach for a Division II program in college basketball, and I could tell you that not everything that happens in the locker room the coach knows about and the head coach knows about. For sure, the assistant coaches might know something's going on, but the head coach for sure does not know everything, because you can try to keep stuff out of his space, you know, as he doesn't need to see everything. But I will say this: did something bad go on? Like, if these allegations are true, if things happen, like, yeah, that's really messed up. And as someone who has been in the locker room, there are times where it goes too far. But from whatever we know, everything we know, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's weird how you go from a 2-week suspension to, oh, you're fired. Oh, you've been coaching here for 17 years. And oh, by the way, this is all coming up now. Right. So there's a lot of things, and I'll let Josh talk on it as well. But I just wanted to say from personally my perspective, like, first off, I don't believe Pat Fitzgerald is a terrible human being. In fact, I think he's one of the better coaches in America. He's one of the better people when it comes to the game of football. I think there's a lot more that we don't know that is not being shared or that has been found out yet. Again, the whole situation sucks for Notre Dame for Northwestern football. And I think Northwestern football, it's going to be a long run ahead. They've had a rough couple years. So that's just the thoughts I have. Josh, is there anything you want to add on to what I've said?
Yeah, I think before I come up with an opinion, I would like to know all the information. And I think we still are missing something very glaring, just because some things just don't line up to me.
Yeah.
But I think we know for sure that Pat is definitely gone. He's not coming back. And I think this kills the Northwestern football program entirely, because before Pat came, were in a situation where they lost like 34 straight games.
Yeah.
It's a school full of nerds. It's hard to recruit talent to come over there. And you get a guy like Pat Fitzgerald in the building that's been there 17 years, that played at the school, that cared about the program so much, and every now and then was able to get them into the Big Ten championship game.
In a terrible West, by the way, the West Division, they're just terrible.
In a terrible West Division, yeah. But I don't think you're ever going to be able to get that to happen at Northwestern. You're not going to get anybody to come over there to care enough about the school that wants to, like, try to put Northwestern on the map.
Jim Leonard is
they're throwing around names like Jim Leonard and Paul Christ, and some people have said Brian Hartline, but I think they'd be lucky to even get any of those guys. I think Jim Leonard would much rather be a a DC at another Power 5 school. I think Brian
Yeah.
Hartline, I mean, he turned down the Cincinnati job, which is way better than
Yeah.
Northwestern. This is going to kill the program. And I mean, it's going to be a heck of a time trying to get anybody to come in there and care about the program as much as Pat did.
I mean, you know, Evanston, Illinois, man, it is a place that everyone wants to go to, obviously. Um, no, in general,
Destination job.
again, this is just briefly we want to talk about this. Just because I know there's been obviously a lot of comments in around this, so we wanted to talk about it since we are a sports talk show. Because then again, I feel like now everyone's going to be like, "Hey, you guys don't talk about tennis. You guys don't talk about." Listen, you know what? Okay, we have an hour.
When we have Johnny
Hour-ish.
Gaunt on the show, we talk about tennis.
Yes. Okay.
Johnny
But we,
hasn't been on the show in so long. So in so long, we haven't talked about tennis.
this is true. Okay. When we talk UFC, have you seen me? I don't know anything. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Okay. So, shh, haters. We block out the haters. Anyways,
By the way, we got an official date on Stipe Miocic and
that is
John Jones
true,
now.
which is going to be
November
an
11th.
awesome fight, which we will break down because we're not going to skip that because not like anything else is going on during that time. That's besides the
Absolutely
point.
not.
Anyways, we hope you are enjoying the fact that we are focusing on football because I think it's obviously coming up. And so the plan is over the next few weeks, we are going to be doing a college football conference preview with a NFL division preview. So for instance, today it's going to be the Pac-12 and we're going to talk about the AFC West. And then it will continue going on until we've covered the top 5 or 6 divisions or conferences in football and college football, and then obviously we'll cover the NFL as well. So also just heads up, I will be traveling to the States here in a few weeks, so time things might be a little off, but hey, we're going to make it work. So, and hopefully if everything goes well, we will have a live, not a live show, but in person with Ben and Josh rather than over Zoom.
In the same room.
Yeah, in the same room. So anyways, let's get started. Josh, why don't you introduce what we're going to talk about with the Pac-12 today?
Yeah, Pac-12. So we're just going to kind of break down some things that
Not
we
every
see in the
team, by the way.
conference.
People,
Yeah,
we're not, listen, we're not Johnny
through,
Gaunt. We're not Johnny Gaunt. We're not Aaron Lynn. We're not going to freaking break down every little detail of, we love you guys, by the way. I'm just saying, we're not going to like on this episode,
we
break
do
down
one
every
episode a
team.
week until you guys start like donating and making this our full-time job. We can't do this every day. So we're at one episode a week when we can, and it's going to be an hour and a half long still. We can't make this a 5-hour long episode breaking down every single team and giving all of our thoughts in its entirety.
Listen,
but
if you
we
want
will
that,
do our best to
listen,
talk about every single team and give them a fair shot and time on air.
if you want us to be on the Daily Wire one day, and it's a European and a European site or an American site, whatever. Like, listen, if we can become famous enough to where I can fly Josh every single week and just fly him over and back, then we'll be there. We'll get you guys. So, but anyways, I digress. So as you said, obviously we're going to break down. So I think we first could start with just an overview of the conference and I don't know if you want to do like a prediction. You want to start off with a prediction of what we think maybe the top 5 teams or anything like that, or how do you want to start?
Well, I got it. I'd like to go overview.
Let's do
and
it.
just start off by saying, before we talk about any other conference, I think this year the Pac-12 is going to be the deepest conference in all of Power 5.
Bold.
I think perhaps not so coincidentally, it's also the deepest conference at the quarterback position too.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
And even the
actually.
teams that may not be contending for the conference championship, your Colorados, your Arizonas, your Arizona States, I think everyone has an interesting storyline that everybody's going to be following. I think everybody wants to know what Arizona State's going to look like with Kenny Dillingham taking over. They got a lot of new young talent in the building and to see what they could be building over there. Jed Fish over at Arizona was able to pull off an upset over UCLA last year and keep Arizona from looking like an absolute complete joke like some other programs. And then you got Colorado with Dion, prime time and all his Louis luggage over there, just getting kicked off with his stint over there.
His
So
14 players he's got coming back.
Yeah, top to bottom, though, I think the Pac-12 is going to be the
Yeah.
deepest and maybe the most exciting conference to watch this year. The real
You mean
question
you
is
mean
going to
watch
be
it? You mean watch it at 10, 12 o'clock in the morning? Is
Pac-12
that
after dark. It's going to be like 6 a.m. your time, Ben. You
dude,
can
it's gonna
watch
be
it.
great.
Yeah, but I'm going to stay up and watch all the Pac-12 after dark that I possibly can this year. That's kind of my general thoughts on the
Yeah.
Pac-12. What do you think, Ben? Am I off base there?
I agree with you that they're going to be deep. Now I would have to say I think let's first off just say the Big 12 and ACC are not going to be that deep. Like I think we both will talk about more of them obviously as we go into the conferences, but I personally believe those two will not be the deepest. I think the Big 10 is lopsided. I think the SEC is lopsided. I think this is the most
They
even.
are. Like the SEC and the Big Ten may have better teams, but they're top
Yeah,
heavy, and then they drop off after
yeah,
like the third or
and
fourth. Whereas the Pac-12
even
legitimately has
keel.
6 or 7 teams that could win this
Yeah,
conference, I
yeah,
think.
even keel. And like when I talk about my top five prediction, you'll see the records that I think predicted for the top five, and you'll realize how close I think it's going to be. But I do agree with you. I think it's going to be 8, 9 teams deep in some case. And I think again, I think you look at what USC did last year. Can they come back from that really frustrating, almost making it to the playoff type of season? Look at Washington. They're claiming they have the best passing offense in college football. Okay. And then you have Oregon, obviously, who's for some reason feels like Oregon never goes away. They lose a head coach, and that somehow they still are around the 9-3 mark. I think Utah, Oregon State. I think you think of Arizona State, who I think are going to be a lot better than what people give them credit for. You look at these teams, and obviously we know UCLA and USC will be leaving the conference. We know that. We know that they're going to be going to the Big Ten, which changes things in the Big Ten after this year. But I think right now, obviously, you have that 7 to 8 deep team for sure, and even I look at USC's schedule. I was looking at the other day, and you have their first probably 6 games are pretty easy, but then they finish up with Notre Dame, Utah, California, Washington, Oregon, UCLA. Like USC could go literally. We both believe USC is probably the best team in the Pac-12, and there's a good chance they could start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-0, and then maybe lose 3 or 4 games at the end of the year. Like that.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing
mean,
with the
all their
Pac-12.
losable games are like at the end. You're right. Notre Dame, Utah, you said Washington, Oregon, UCLA.
Yeah. So that's the crazy thing for me. And so I think with that, I think before we jump into like players and stuff to watch and maybe some big transfers, obviously we're not going to talk about Colorado because they basically are a transferred team. But I do want to get your thoughts on a prediction. I will give my top five prediction of what I think of the top five of the Pac-12 will be this year. And you can kind of agree with me, or maybe you don't. But I think winning the Pac-12 this year will be USC. I think they're going to finish. I'm counting the Pac-12 championship game in this in the records. So I have USC winning. They're going to finish 11-2. I think they lose to Utah because for some reason Utah has their number. And then I think they lose. I'm going to say they might lose back to back, Notre Dame and Utah back to back. And I think they finish strong, but I think they might lose those 2 games. But I think USC at 11-2. I have them beating Washington in the Pac-12 game, championship game. They'll finish 10-3. I have Oregon finishing third at 9-3. I have Utah finishing fourth at 9-3. So there's gonna be a lot of there's weird numbers here, but then I have Oregon State. This is the maybe the shocker of this, but I have Oregon State finishing fifth at 8-4. And I want to make a bold statement. People, stop thinking that Colorado is going to win 7 or 8, 9 games. I think they barely win 6, and that is a fact coming from Ben Bowden, and that's what's going to stay as a fact. What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
I don't have any specific like
Okay, I know.
wins
I'm
and
a nerd.
losses on my end. I will say some things though. So that being said, that we think the Pac-12 is going to be the deepest conference, I think the same question is always going to be there. Will they have that one elite team that can rise to the
Yeah,
top, or are they going to cannibalize themselves like they do to every year, having like a 2 or 3 loss conference champion?
yeah.
That's going to be the main thing. And I think USC is going to be the team that everybody's going to look at. Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams being out there. I mean, we know that the offense can score 40, 50 points a
The
game, but
defense I'm worried about.
is the defense going to be able to do that? And I think USC's done some work in the portal. I mean, they've gotten guys like Bear
Yeah,
Alexander and a couple others that have been starters at their former programs that they were at. I got a
Well,
couple
even
transfer.
the receiving core is pretty solid. Like they didn't really. I
Yeah,
mean, obviously they lose
Mario Williams
Addison,
is
but
back. Mario Williams is back. USC had the third best transfer portal class
yeah,
coming into the season. So they added 9 5-star kids, and like I said, a lot of them were seeing some decent playing time at their
yeah,
schools. Actually, the Pac-12 entirely, dude. Like Colorado, obviously the wild one, but USC, Oregon, and UCLA are all in the top
yeah.
10
They did
for
really well.
portal rankings.
Did
So
really well.
they hit the portal really well. They got 6 teams that are have over under win totals in Vegas at 8.5 or higher. So I think that just plays into it again. Whereas like we really don't know, based on a few bounces of
Yeah,
the ball, who could be winning this conference. But I am kind of with you, leaning towards USC as being a favorite. But I also am not ruling out Washington having Michael Penix back, who I
dude, he's
think
a
is,
beast. He's an underrated
yeah,
dude. Super underrated.
yeah,
Like
he's going
to
to be a
me,
guy that's going to throw
yeah,
over 4,000 yards. He's going to be a
easily.
guy that's probably going to be a Heisman finalist at the end of the season. I, I mean, legitimately, dude. Speaking of Heisman's, would it shock you if you were to have a season end with Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, and we can throw out maybe somebody else crazy from
Marvin
the
Harrison
Pac-12,
Jr.
but
No, I'm just kidding.
basically we could have 4 Pac-12
Yeah,
guys in this Heisman finalist list, I
that's
think.
true. And I know we'll touch on this here in a bit about players and stuff. But so give me if you can give me your top five. No, maybe your top two, and then like in no other order. Maybe the top five teams you think will finish the top five in the Pac-12. Maybe not records or anything, but just your top five.
Yeah, if I remember right, the Pac-12 is doing away with divisions, right?
Yes, yeah, they're going all
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
So, all right, we're going to legitimately get the 2 best teams in here then.
yes,
And I do like what you pointed out there with USC schedule. It's very easy at the front, but very heavy at the back end. Let me go ahead and start off with my dark horse for this conference, and that's Oregon State.
thank you. Someone else is on that train because I'm on that train as well.
Jonathan Smith, their head coach, has gone from 2 wins to 7 wins to 10 wins. So he's got them trending up. I think they went out and got a great addition with DJ Uiagalelei. I don't care what
Got
anybody
him away
says
from
about how
Clemson.
terrible he did at Clemson. He was at his best his freshman year. And then once he sat into that system, and I mean, they also started losing quality receivers around him and stuff. He just started to fall apart there. So I think getting a change of scenery and getting to go to a place like
Yeah,
Oregon State uh, is going to be a good thing for him, getting out of the
yeah,
Clemson system. And then let me go ahead and read off Oregon State's schedule to you, and let me show you how doable this is. So San Jose State, UC Davis, San Diego State is who they have out of conference. They go to Washington State to open conference play. Then they host Utah. They're at Cal, host UCLA. They're at Arizona, at Colorado. They host Stanford, Washington, and then they go to Oregon to end the season.
yeah,
So out of all their difficult games, most of them are going to be at home. Utah's going to be a home game. UCLA is going to be a home game. Washington's going to be a home game. And then they just have to go to Oregon at the end of the
yeah,
season. Last year, they only lost 3 games. Granted, Utah did beat them 42-16 last year, but their other loss, USC, was only a 3-point loss. And then they were at Washington last year and only lost that game by 3 points as well.
yeah.
I think that Oregon State, people aren't really talking about them enough. Like, how many people do you think know Oregon State won 10 games last year, Ben?
I really don't think there's a lot unless you're like us who like spam stats and are always on our phones trying to figure out what to talk about, because I think even we didn't really talk about them last year. I mean, we briefly talked about them in the fall, but I think it's just a team that it is, and I'll tell you that I mean, that my dark horse is Oregon State because I'm very high on Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I obviously my projection was 8-4, and I think that's because I feel like Oregon State needs that. I feel like they need it. I hate to say it, take a step back because I feel like that's a terrible thing to say, but maybe they do need to take a slight step back this year to propel them into a better spot. Because you think about this, Josh. If they take a step back, or maybe they're not a top 3 team in the Pac-12, you lose USC and UCLA. What does that leave
Mm-hmm.
you? That leaves you Washington, Oregon, possibly Utah, and then Oregon State. And those are the top 4, right? So for me, I think maybe they don't overachieve this year, but I think I do agree with you. They're a dark horse that if you're looking up in in November and you're like, wait, why is Oregon State and Washington leading the Pac-12? Well, that's because it's chaotic, right? So again, there's that possibility.
And again, Oregon State does avoid USC too.
That's
So
huge. That's huge. So obviously your dark horse is Oregon State. So what would you say? Would you say USC is the top? If you were just rank them without thinking about anything dark horse or anything, you would just rank them as what you think
without thinking too much into it, I would go with USC first, and I'd probably have Washington at second. They went 11-2 last year, got Michael Penix coming back, and I believe they got 14 returning starters coming back,
including top two receivers that have over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, seven stars on offense, 7 stars on defense coming back. That's going to be super clutch for them. Third, I'd probably go Oregon, a team that won 10 games last year. And let me double check here what they got coming back. I mean, Bo Nix, who I think is going to be a Heisman finalist, almost was a Heisman finalist last year, is going to be back. They got 12 returning starters, 7 of them on the defensive side, 5 on the offensive side. After that, I would lean Utah, a team I was very high on last year, as you know, Ben.
Yes, I know.
That
I know.
Maybe didn't start off the strongest, but ended the year on a high note as the Pac-12 champs, top 10 team in the country.
Yo, you got high on them
10-win
team. When Florida struggled with them, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I'll be high on them. I'm just saying.
Utah also has 14 starters coming back this year.
And also Utah,
including Cam Rising.
Okay, Cam Rising's been there for like 8 years. Like I
for
swear
8 years. That's another quarterback that I didn't even mention that's still in the conference, just to add to how deep this quarterback conference has been.
That's true. I mean, and again, I think that's, obviously we've said our dark horse. This is my team that I think will. Okay, I have 2 teams for this because I've already said one, and I'm going to have to mention it again because I have to, because I'm so freaking tired of people on social media. The 2 teams I think are overhyped in the conference, and I think one is obviously Colorado. Like I get why people are like, it's Dion. I'm like, dude, this team was 1-11.
Do people actually think that Colorado's gonna be good though? Because Vegas has their over/under win total at 3.5, and I don't hear anybody beating the drum that they're gonna win.
Well, I know there's been
9 games,
maybe not ESPN, but I know there's been a lot of podcasters or like just videos of different, not just like Ohio State people, but different people that have said, well, I really believe that Colorado could win 7 or 8 games. I'm like, I don't know how that's possible because one, the chemistry of this team is not going to be where it needs to be. I mean, you have basically 70 new guys. Colorado is going to become the free agency of college football. I mean, every year it's going to be like that, I feel like. And the thing that does worry about winning Colorado is that some of their top transfer guys they went to get have now reopened and are going somewhere else. So that to me shows there is some interesting chemistry going on behind the scenes. So that's one that's overhyped. I think the second one for me is Washington a little bit. Now I know I have them finishing second, but I feel like there might be some that think they are better than USC. I think there's a pretty big gap between USC and Washington, at least in my opinion. I believe that USC overall, I think, has that extra talent gap that Washington may not have. That gives it a little bit of boost. But again, Michael Penix, like I said, is a very underrated quarterback. So what would you say maybe as a team that you think maybe is a little more overhyped or might not finish as well as what people think they might finish? UCLA is another one that came to mind for me.
Yeah, I think UCLA is going to be more interesting to watch just because no Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, but Dante Moore, it sounds like, is going to be the starting quarterback.
It's just so funny.
Big 5-star freshman. And then, like I said, they had a top 10 portal class. Chip Kelly's been doing about as good as anybody can be at UCLA. So I think they're going to be more of a fun team to watch. I'm not going to put them super high on any of my expectations lists or anything like that. But as far as who might not do as good as what people think, let me run through the conference again here.
I was thinking like maybe Arizona State or Arizona, like just maybe expectation wise. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that those teams are probably going to have like a 5-win ceiling out there. Washington State and California, and they're 2 at like 5-win ceilings. So someone's got to finish 5th and 6th in this conference. And I said USC 1. I said Washington 2. I think Oregon 3, Utah 4,
Oregon State,
Oregon State at 5. I'd say UCLA 6. So I think that's about what everybody else is saying. I think that's about what Vegas would probably have
Stanford?
as well.
What do you think about Stanford this year?
Is Stanford going to win a game?
That's what I was wondering too, man. I really don't know.
Like we're talking about how tough Colorado's schedule is, but at least they got some talent in the building, whether it's young or not. Stanford, dude, what the heck are they going to do, man?
It's okay. People
This is
don't
a team
realize,
coming off a 3-9 season, going 1-8 in conference play.
dude. Stanford's the Wisconsin of the West Coast. I mean,
Let's actually go over Stanford's schedule real quick here.
Yeah.
So they're at Utah, or not Utah, at Hawaii to start the season off.
Always a classic.
Always a classic. I could go
Always a
either way, I'd
classic.
say. They go at USC next. Then they have Sacramento State. Hopefully that's a win for their sake. They got in conference play Arizona, Oregon, Colorado, UCLA, Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and then they got Notre Dame.
Dude,
At the end of the season.
I'll tell you, they have. I'm gonna say, let's see. I'm gonna say they beat
The
Hawaii.
only surefire win I think on here, if you want to call it surefire, is Sac State.
I think they beat. So this is what I think. I think they beat Hawaii. They beat Sacramento State, and then maybe California at home. Maybe
In conference, it's tough, man. In conference, I don't know if they can win a game.
I think they beat. Okay, I really do believe they think they beat Cal. I don't. I think they can beat Cal.
I think that's the most winnable one. If you had to pick one,
Yeah.
like if I had to pick one conference team that they could beat, maybe Cal. But
I would say Washington State, but it's at Washington State, and we know how hard it is to play
Cam
at Washington
Ward's
State.
also, Washington State always is like tough for some reason. And Cam Ward's over there, another top quarterback, just to add to the play.
That's true. I mean, it's not. This conference is crazy. And speaking of, I think we can talk about. You want to talk about players now, because I think that's always the fun part to talk about. Or do you want to talk about?
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. Unless you want to break down any individual teams anymore, it's up to you. I'm free game, as they say, Josh. Free game.
Free game. All right. Well, not really any individual teams out there that I want to go position by position by. I will highlight a couple big matchups though that I think.
Let's do that. That's actually a good point.
Could shape the conference. So we have a lot of big in conference matchups. Obviously, we'll start with Oregon at Washington, October 14th. That's going to be the sixth game of the season for Oregon. For Washington, that's also going to be their sixth game, it looks like. So both those teams are going to have plenty of tune-up time in there. Another one that I think is going to be huge this season is going to be the USC-Utah game. Simply because of the fact that Utah beat them twice last year. This is going to be on USC's home turf this year, the following week. So you got October 14th, Oregon and Utah, or Oregon and Washington, and then you get USC-Utah the week after that. One other matchup that I think could be really big in determining this conference here is the USC matchup against Washington as well. That's in November 4th. So just those three teams. I don't think that Oregon has to, Oregon does play USC. So I guess just the USC, Washington, Oregon triangle right there. All those results right there. Those games are separated by about 3 or 4 weeks. So we're going to get to watch them like back to back to back to back almost.
I mean, I really think this conference is going to come down to, I mean, this is the thing about the Pac-12, and I've said this for, I think ever since we covered sports, I think together, but I think truly the Pac-12 just screws itself because it has so many either
it doesn't
decent
have
team,
that
decent
one
teams,
team like that one Ohio
teams,
State or that one Georgia or that one Clemson that's like the surefire top team.
Yeah, and I know we'll talk about it when we get to the Big Ten and the SEC, obviously. But for me, I just think it's fascinating that there's going to be so many teams that are 10-3 or 9-3, and you're like, wow, but this team in any other conference could be a 11-2 team or a 10-2 team. You know?
What the heck is Utah finishing if you throw them in the ACC?
No, I will tell you this. I think if you in the ACC, I think the top 5 teams that we labeled would all finish. I think to me, I think Washington, the ACC, finishes 11-1, right? USC goes undefeated. I think
even if you throw like UCLA, like there may be a 7-win team this season.
They probably
in the
9.
ACC,
yeah. And I again, we'll talk about how much we both dislike the ACC and how much I think it's just a messed up conference. But No, I think it's a fascinating. I mean, these games. This is the thing. I feel like in college football, the difference between college football and NFL. I know we'll talk about NFL at the end of the show. And Josh, maybe you can test on this too. Growing up, you never woke up and going, man, I want to go. I can't wait to watch these matchups in the NFL, right? It was your favorite team and you just went and watched your favorite team. You didn't care really about what's going on in the NFL unless it was a rival team or whatever. In college football, I know that I remember when I was in college at Cedarville, I would watch the high state game. Let's say they played at noon. I would watch like 2 or 3 more football games. Like, and I would be excited to, I don't care what happens, but it was just fun to watch. And I think that's what makes not only this conference, but I think college football in general just so much fun. I think this year even more than any year.
Yeah. One other thing I just mentioned the Big Eight conference matchups. These games aren't going to determine conference standings, but it could have playoff implications maybe. The out of conference games that are going to be the most exciting, I think. Utah has Florida and Baylor out of conference.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe it was more exciting 5 years ago to have those
That's
teams
true.
on the calendar, but at the same time, it's still some Power 5 competition that you usually don't get to see a whole lot of. Oregon has Texas Tech.
That's gonna be a good
Texas
one.
Tech's been a lot of people's dark horse for the Big 12. We'll talk more about that later in the season. USC, obviously, with Notre Dame, that's like a classic rivalry out of conference. Washington goes to Michigan State this season. That's the second game of a home and home as well. That's also a game that I'm thinking about going to. We'll see what happens.
Oh, maybe
Go
a
up to
little road trip on the
little
Instagram.
road trip up to Sparty, yeah. And then finally, just because you mentioned Colorado and how many games are they going to win? Out of conference, they got TCU first game of the season, and then they have Nebraska second game.
Well, Nebraska sucks, so I mean, we'll talk about them. People think that Matt Rule is going to bring them from the grave. I mean, you're going to have to dig pretty deep.
Yeah. And then
you're gonna have to dig
finally,
pretty deep.
not a Power 5 team, but notable G5 team, Coastal Carolina. They play UCLA week 1.
Coastal Carolina could sneak up on people. I'm telling
Could
you.
be a fun one. It could be a fun one because who the heck is the quarterback? Grayson McCall is still over there.
Also, a guy that's been there like 8 years, but also, fun fact, Cedarville graduate Peyton Eales, who was a All-American baseball player at Cedarville University, just graduated from Coastal Carolina as a transfer this past year. So, fun little fact about
The
Coastal
more you
Carolina.
know. All right.
The more you know. So, should we talk about players now? Should we head into the player?
Which players are you most excited to see in this conference, Ben?
This is what I'll say. I'm going to open up with this. All right. We're going to talk about. I think we'll talk about the quarterbacks overall, but I think what we need to do is, I think we can talk about our player of the year, who we think the player of the year is, and then the most exciting players who we think are the most exciting to watch. Because I think that's different, right? We've seen in the Big Ten, right? We've seen in the national landscape. I think both of us agree that Marvin Harrison Jr. probably should have won the Blitnikoff, but he didn't, right? There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but I'm gonna say who I think is gonna be the player of the year in the Pac-12. We're not gonna go into like all the different awards. I'm just player of the year, best player in the year of the Pac-12. I'm going to come out and say that the person who I think is going to win it, just to throw a wrench in the things, is going to win it is going to be Caleb Williams. All right. That's who I think is going to win it. And I think we both agree is going to win it. But I think a guy that could win it, and I think a guy that could throw a wrench in the plans would be Michael Penix Jr., who then correlates to my favorite players who I'm most excited to watch. And those two players would be both Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, and I'm going to throw a third in there, and that is DJ Ugalungala, whatever you say his last name.
DJ Ugalungala.
Yeah, DJU. I'm going to say those three players. I know they're quarterbacks. I'm a quarterback guy, but let's be honest, those three guys are going to be amazing. And if I would throw a non-quarterback in there, I would say Freeman from UCF. Wow, USC. The defensive end. That's his last name, right? Correct. I think that's his last name, right? 5-star recruit. Oh, I think it is. I
Can't remember.
Anyways, highly recruited. Ohio State was after him. I'm very excited because I think he's going to have a breakout a season coming up. So that's what I'm going to say. And the matchup I'm excited about, player versus player, would be the DJU versus his brother, Oregon game. Just going to say. So those are my who do you think is going to be the player of the year? I think we can agree on it. And then you're most excited to watch.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams obviously has to be the guy that everybody's going to say. I mean, when you win the Heisman, you're the best player in college football last year, and you come back this season. It's like, well, It's got to be you, right? You were the best last season. You're coming back. But I think Bo Nix and Michael Penix are two other
Yeah,
obviously
for
guys
sure.
you could throw in there, especially Bo, who's also a dual threat on the ground. As far as like some other positions go, Bucky Irving is the leading returning rusher in the league. Oregon's running back,
True. I forgot about him. Yeah,
rushed
yeah.
for just over 1,000 yards last year, which was third in the conference last year. And then as far as like some receivers go, I mentioned Mario Williams earlier.
Yep.
Not as big of a stat guy last year, but super talented, super young guy that's going to take on a much larger role in the offense now Jordan Addison's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to throw out McMillan and Odunzi, I think is how you say his name, Washington's receivers.
Yeah.
Both of them topped 1,000 yards last year. That's two of the top three receivers in the conference last year in terms of total yards. And they are back this year. Michael Penix is going to be thrown to them as well. Also, much lower on the radar, Ben. I bet you didn't know this. So those two guys that I just mentioned, top three in the conference. Would you believe that Arizona had two wide receivers that finished in the top four
Yes, because
last year?
Arizona always has weird stats that doesn't make sense for how bad they are. Like
It's
it never
true.
makes sense. It never
It
makes
doesn't
sense
make
to me.
sense. And their quarterback, I mean, you got to scroll down to like, unless they used multiple quarterbacks last year. I don't
They
even
did
see a
not. No,
quarterback here that.
Jaden De Laura, who was the former Washington State quarterback, threw for 3,685 yards last year.
Oh, yes. Jaden DeLora. And I believe he's back, right?
Yeah, he should be. I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah, yeah.
That's what it
And
looks like on the ESPN app, at least.
yeah,
3,600 yards last year, 25 touchdowns, 13 picks.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, they have two pretty good. Actually, technically, if you look at their stats, they had three receivers. They had a guy with 1,000 yards, another 1,000 yards. They had a guy with 700 yards. So and he averaged 18 yards a catch. So I mean, they are secretly loaded, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
So
like just going quarterbacks. Like, listen to all these quarterbacks, Ben. So we mentioned Jaden DeLora from Arizona, Caleb Williams at USC, Michael
mhm.
Penix at Washington, Bo Nix at Oregon, Cam Rising at Utah, DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State, Dante Moore
Yeah,
at UCLA, Cam Ward at Washington State.
it's freaking
Um,
unreal.
I don't know exactly who Stanford, Arizona State, and Cal are going to be throwing out there, but Shador Sanders at Colorado, I think, is maybe one of the most intriguing players in the country. We've seen him dominate at the FCS, HBCU level, whatever, at Jackson
Yeah,
State. This year, though, playing against all these top programs with really young weapons he's going to
yeah.
have. It's We're going to see if he's up for the hype or not. But I think Shador Sanders is going to be another one of those guys that's going to be
Yeah,
exciting to watch
dude,
too.
I think Sanders, as much as I was harping on Colorado, I'm sorry for everyone out there that thinks I was harping on. I think he could have a secretly really good year because I think
Even like
he's
on the level of Jaden DeLora last year,
yeah,
we just said like he had all those numbers which look pretty good. Maybe they didn't have like the record, but I think Shador can definitely
yeah.
have a season like
I think
that.
Shador, I mean, I think he could have a great year. I think Hunter as well. I think he plays a little bit both ways. I wouldn't be shocked if Dion
He
does
might
that.
have to. Like he's
Yeah.
regularly a safety, I think, but I think he's gonna have to play a little bit of receiver. He's been doing it in all the spring games.
Yeah. Which I think also does well. And because Josh, I love the special teams, and because I feel like special teams don't get highlighted, one key player of special teams that I want to point out, because I'm going to do this with every single breakdown we go through, and especially in college football, I'm going to give you one guy to look out for on the special teams, because Josh, that's what I'm here for.
All
And that
right.
is Joshua Carty. We talked about how bad we think Stanford's going to be. Well, Joshua Carty was 100% on his field goals, yet he did miss. He did miss a couple extra point, one extra point, but it's okay. He had a 61-yard field goal last year. A very good kicker. And I'm going to say, check out Joshua Carty if you're looking into the special teams genre, like they're a book. um but that's what I want to say for that, because Stanford, that's probably about the only highlight they're going to have all season. So go Kickers.
I'm gonna throw out a couple of guys on the defensive side of the
Yeah,
ball
do it.
for you, Ben. So um Braylon Trice,
Braylon
third
Trice, yeah, that's a
leading
good one. Yep,
sack leader in the conference last year, is back at Washington this year.
yep.
I hope I say this name right. Latu Latu
Like
from
Tula two.
UCLA. second in sacks in the conference last year at 10.5, back with UCLA this year. As far as some of the other defensive stats go, USC had Kalen Bullock in the secondary last year, get 5 picks. That was second in the conference. He's back. One other guy that I think you'll have to look out for too. I hope I say his name right too. You got one highlight for Cal, Jackson Sermon, a linebacker, third in the conference in tackles last year. Back again.
Yeah, I mean, I love linebackers that can tackle. I just think it's fun to watch. I think there's a lot of guys I think that you can keep, it's sometimes hard because you have to kind of keep your eye on different things on defense, because it's a little harder to kind of point out like, hey, this guy's going to be a stud, right? Obviously Clark Phillips is gone. If he was still around, I would say him. Obviously Christian Gonzalez as well, another guy. But it's I think another guy is. Did you say Kalen Bullock? Did you talk about him? I can't remember if you said anything about him.
I did, yeah, from USC.
Yeah. Like
second in the conference in picks last year.
I think he's a freaking stud. Like I think he's gonna be fun to watch. I think, you have some of these other dudes. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. But if you look at tackles, like I was looking at tackles specifically. You go down here. Okay, he's not. Sorry. Oops, wrong guy. Which guy? Oh, click it. Oh. You look at Cole Bishop. That's another guy who is a safety at Utah. Again, not a well-known name, but a lot of tackles. Like I like dudes that tackle a lot. Like I like guys that, especially in safety position. You know it, Josh. You watch Ohio State. How many of the Ohio State tacklers were like safeties, right? The last few years, which is good and bad. Depends on the defense you play. But for me, I think it's going to be a fun season to watch. I do want to go back to the sacks. I think it's fascinating because you saw so many USC guys and so many Washington guys and Utah guys in the sack leaders, which I thought was very fascinating from last year. I don't know. That's just my thought. What is your thoughts on all these different dudes? I guess that I think you miss a lot of these guys, because I see guys that obviously are in the NFL now. What is your thought on that, Josh? Do you feel like, what do you think is harder? Do you think it's harder to fill something from the receiver's perspective or the quarterback perspective, not quarterback, but receiver, like volume of what they've done, or a defensive guy that you're like, hey, this guy went out and got 10 sacks last year, and having to fill that void? What do you think?
Probably the defensive guys.
Yeah.
It just seems like receiver is starting to become a deeper and deeper position.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just because of all the more passing that you're seeing at the college and the pro level.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lean on the defensive side. Plus, that seems to be what burns a lot of these college programs. It's almost never a lack of offense unless you're Iowa, really. What was USC last year, Ben? They had one of the worst defenses last year. It was a defense that could make big plays, like we just mentioned Bullock with all the picks. Tui Lupu or whatever his name is led the conference in sacks last year. In the NFL now. They were getting sacks, but they were also prone to big plays. So they're either making big plays or getting burned on big plays. So defense is what I'm going to lean towards in this case, at least.
Yeah,
man, Ben.
What?
I'm just scrolling through Arizona's returning production on offense again, and I mean they got a running back that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year too, and they got 8 of their returning 11 starters back. Arizona. And they went 5-7 last year.
Yeah.
Can they go 6-6?
Are you talking about Arizona State or Arizona?
Arizona, the Wildcats.
Arizona. Yeah.
Now I gotta look at their schedule.
Well, no, did they though? No, they only had a guy that ran.
They went 5-7.
Yeah, but Arizona only had a guy that ran for 700 yards.
No, I think they had a guy rush for 1,000.
No, Arizona State did.
No, Jacob Cowing for Arizona rushed for 1,000 yards last year.
Jacob Cowan? He's not on the stats. I'm on the stats.
All right, I'm gonna show you through the camera here for you guys watching. You know what? That's a receiver. I take that back. This is receiving stats.
Told you. Don't mess with the stat king over here. Don't mess with the stat king.
2 leading receivers in the conference back though, and a quarterback.
I mean, they did. I mean, I would give it credit. They did have a guy run for.
They do have to
put.
Oh man, Ben, they play Mississippi State out of conference.
Yep, I saw that.
Will Rogers and the air raid over there.
Honoring Mike Leach this year too, which could be a dangerous game to play.
That's a week 2 game. We'll probably be occupied with more important out of conference matchups at that point, but Could be low key entertaining. A 70-63 score, might I say.
That's true. I think it's gonna be a
They
great
play
season.
Northern Arizona,
That's true.
Mississippi State, UTEP, Stanford. They could be 3-1 at that point before going. They got to play Washington, then USC and Washington State next, and Oregon State, UCLA, Colorado. Oh man, dude, they got to play like all the good teams in the conference.
Of course they do.
Oregon State as well. UCLA, I said Utah. If they can beat Arizona State, Colorado, Washington State, UTEP, Northern Arizona, and Stanford, they go 6-6. I think they can do it.
Be a tough one. Josh, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Because I wanted to finish on one topic before we switch to the NFL to finish up the show. Is there any other little things you wanted to talk about with the
Nope.
Pac-12?
I think I pretty much got all my Pac-12 hype out of my mouth.
I wanted to say this about what team or like what school and coach time together is on the biggest hot seat, if any, in the Pac-12.
The biggest hot seat in the Pac-12 right now. It's tough to
Would
say. I think
would you
Lincoln
say
Riley's safe.
would
I
you
think
say
that
UCLA? Would you say Chip Kelly?
no, because I think he's overachieved what you can
Okay.
really do at UCLA, winning 9 games. I think he's
Yeah.
had a 10-win season over there before. I think
Because
Kyle Whittingham.
I'm leaning towards there is no real true hot seat unless you count California and Stanford, but I really don't because I think
Yeah,
they know what they're going to get.
I'm going through the teams right now, and like Jed Fish, Arizona, I think winning 5 games last year, and I mentioned he has a chance to win 6 this year. I think that's an excellent start over there. I think that they're definitely going to give him time. Kenny Dillingham's a first year guy at Arizona State. You
Yeah.
can't make any judgments on that. Dion's a first year. They're going to let him stay there as long as he wants. I feel like Dane Lanning started off great at Oregon last year. Jonathan Smith has Oregon State in the right track. Like I said, Chip Kelly, I think, has done all you can do at UCLA. Lincoln Riley at USC, obviously, he's going to be safe. Um, Kyle Whittingham, I think, is a lifer at Utah. Whoever coaches at Washington State, as long as you can win like 6 games consistently there, I
Yeah.
think is always safe. I don't know who's coaching at Washington. Who's that?
It's
But I mean,
Labor. He coached at Fresno State, I believe, and then he was at
either
Indiana
way,
before that.
11
Yeah.
wins last year. They're not even thinking about
Yeah.
firing him right now. They're thinking
Again,
playoffs.
that's why I think it's going to be like Stanford or California. It'd be like the two schools I could
Stanford or
even see.
California,
Yeah.
maybe. We talked about Northwestern being a tough place to win. I feel like Stanford's in the same
That's
boat,
also a
but
tough one.
Stanford has been able to win 9-10 games before in the
Yeah.
past. They've been able to get guys like Kevin Hogan and Andrew Luck there,
But the
and they've
difference
been
is
able to
though,
win.
the difference is there is that with California, you have such more of a talent pool where the sense of like a kid wants to stay in California. He's really smart. He's a decent athlete or a pretty good athlete. He'd rather go there than Northwestern, right? Like Northwestern is just a tough place to get people to come. Whereas Stanford's like, it's in California. I want to hang out in
Mhm.
California, which is another thing. So again, Josh, I think we did pretty good on the Pac-12. Please let us know in the comments, hey, you didn't cover this, or hey, could you cover this in the future ones? Obviously, this is our first kind of preview we've ever done on the show. So again, we're trying to like guess what looks good, what sounds good, what we need to do better for the next time. But again, that is the Pac-12 preview. Again, we will obviously comment on this in the future. Hopefully, I'll have a graphic of some sort of some of our projections or predictions. Now, Josh, before we finish the show, obviously we'll finish this before we do that, would be AFC West projected standings. Not projected standings, predictions. Projected standings is part of that, but predictions, who we think is going to be a top player, who we think about the new coaches, what do we think about, does the Chiefs repeat, these kind of things. Where do you want to start with this? Do we start with our predictions or do you want to start with breaking down certain things?
I would just like to state that last year I picked Denver to win the division, followed by Vegas, Kansas City, and the
Yes.
Chargers, and I didn't get one single one of those right.
I want to point out that my Broncos that I chose screwed me over. And I want to point out that I was really wrong a lot about this division. And I don't want to talk about it.
Lessons learned: don't sleep or bet on or against Patrick Mahomes. I'm
Yes, we
not
learned our
doing that
lesson.
this year, Ben.
That
And
is
quick
true.
spoiler: Kansas City's winning this division. I'm never not going to pick them to win a division, just like I never would bet against Tom Brady when he was playing. Even on that terrible Tampa Bay team, I hated picking against them with the Dallas
You did that.
playoff
You did that.
matchup. And yeah, I was like, I can't do it. I've been burned by Tom Brady too much. I've Patrick Mahomes is still very young, the best quarterback in football, doing things that we've never seen anybody else do before. Already has played in 3 Super Bowls, has won 2 of them. It doesn't really matter, honestly, who his receivers are. He's going to be throwing to Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney this season.
Travis
Travis
Kelce.
Kelce's still there at tight end, but
Which, by the
I
way,
mean, and you
talk about
just
it.
give him all these fast guys, he's going to be
Yeah.
just fine.
Talk about another great podcast. Go listen to the Kelsey Brothers podcast. Phenomenal podcast.
Absolutely.
Great podcast. But I will, because I'm a nerd, Josh, I will give you their projected also a record because I'm a nerd and I just like those numbers. So this is my projected standings. I agree with you that I'm not going against the Chiefs again because I'm not that stupid. I'm going to have the Chiefs going 14-3. They're going to win the conference. I think it's going to be the division. It's going to be easy for them. Gosh, am I really doing this 2 years in a row? I'm going to say that the Broncos have a tremendous turnaround. I think they will, though. To be honest, I really do. With Sean Payton coming in, I think that is a huge addition for them.
They did change head coach, and I'm just going to throw this out there. If they scored league average offense last year, they win 11 games.
That's true.
Russell Wilson was very bad. Javonte Williams was injured for the entire season. Jerry
receiving
Jeudy
core is
started
bad.
coming around later in the season. I think Cortland Sutton was pretty inconsistent.
The offensive line was rough.
Nothing was going good. Yeah, nothing was going good for Denver last year. And Vegas, I think I even mentioned it last year. I picked them to go second. I loved the trade for Devontae Adams. I did hate the Josh McDaniels hire, but I ignored it. And I'm not ignoring it again this year, Ben. They have Jimmy G playing quarterback this year. They still have Josh McDaniels at head coach. I'm not putting them at second. In fact, I don't even think I'm going to put them third.
Okay, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to run through it. I'm going to go Broncos 10-7 at second in second place. I'm going to go Chargers go 8-9. Yes. I'm going to have the Chargers finish third or fourth every freaking year until the Crane brothers start listening to me.
How the heck is Brandon Staley still their head coach?
Dude, I don't know.
The guy consistently does things to screw up over and over and over again.
You know, I don't know. It's California. We never know. That's a California joke. Chargers finished 8-9. I have the Raiders, and Josh is going to eat me alive on this. I have the Raiders finishing fourth, and they're going to finish 5-12.
As much as I hate to see it, I don't think you're that wrong.
Yes. Does that mean Josh and I have the exact same? Do we have the exact?
I got the exact same standings. Maybe I'd be a little bit different with the records and stuff, but listen to this Chargers schedule, by the way.
It's brutal. I looked at it before we got on. It's not fair.
I'm just gonna read this in order. They play the Dolphins. That sounds like a loss. Titans win.
Loss. Yes, loss.
Okay. Vikings loss. Raiders win. Dallas loss. Chiefs loss. Bears win. Jets
loss.
Probably loss. Lions
loss.
I'm going as well. Packers win.
That was very quick.
Ravens
loss.
I'm going loss as well. Patriots win.
Loss.
Broncos.
Is it at Bronco?
This is the home game first.
Win.
Raiders at Raiders.
Loss. No, win. Sorry. Win. Sorry.
Bills.
Loss.
That's a loss. Broncos at Denver.
Loss.
Then they host KC.
Loss.
I'm seeing like 9 or 10 losses.
Yeah, that's why I said, see, look at me. I am on fire.
We just picked different teams, I guess, that we thought they'd beat and stuff. But yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I love Justin Herbert. I love Austin Eckler.
Like, I think they're wasting Justin Herbert's talent, personally.
They are, man.
I'll just say this. I think the Chargers, if you put, dude, I think the perfect team for Justin Herbert, and I say this, can you imagine, just put in this perspective, imagine Justin Herbert on the Seattle Seahawks.
I was going to say the Dolphins, dude.
But just imagine Justin Herbert.
The Dolphins just drafted him 5th overall instead of Tua.
But just imagine if somehow they made a trade and the Seahawks got Justin Herbert. Put him with Smith and Jigba, with, dude, the countless
DK Lockett.
Yeah, Lockett, the offensive line, which is pretty good up there in Seattle. I'm just saying. it's what I do on franchise mode, right? You put the unrealistic traits. Um,
For
okay,
sure.
so we look at these teams. What should we focus on here next for this, which by the way is a league that is a division that either is overrun by the Chiefs or is way too close for some reasons. That's usually what happens
Yeah,
in this division.
I'm gonna run through the Vegas schedule right now. Actually, I think Las Vegas, with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, mind you, an older Chandler Jones, though I think you're always gonna have, excuse me, a great pass rush
I don't
there,
trust their offense. I don't trust their offense.
which is crazy to say because I mean, let's just say we get a healthy Jimmy G all
But
season,
that's the thing. That's the big if, and I don't know if it's
and
going to
then you
happen.
got like Jarrett Stidham as your backup after
Ugh.
that. I think you got Josh Jacobs still at running back. Your receivers are Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow, which is a great 1-2 punch. I think Michael Mayer is tight end now since they got rid of Darren Waller and Foster
Yeah,
Moreau are out of there. But
I don't
man,
know, man. They're just such a weird team.
the Raiders got the Broncos, Bills, Steelers, Chargers to start the season. That very easily could be 0-4.
Easily.
Then they got the Pack, which also
Let's
could
be
be a
honest.
loss.
The
It is
Packers.
Jordan Love Packers. It is Jordan Love Packers, and they do get that game at home. Green Bay is a 1-point favorite right now. But actually, I'm gonna go ahead and see how long it takes before we actually get to a game the Raiders are favored in, Ben. So right now, Denver, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Chargers, Green Bay, New England, Chicago, and Detroit are all favored. That is how many games did I just name?
Like eight,
One,
eight
two,
or
three,
eight.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Vegas is saying that that they're going to lose their first 8 games based on these point spreads.
Dude, see, I'm telling you, man, I'm on fire with this prediction stuff.
They got them beating the Giants, so now they're 1-8. Then they're a dog against the Jets, Dolphins, and Chiefs. Now they're 1-11. They're a favorite against the Vikings,
What?
2-11. I don't know why.
Okay.
2 and
Jeez.
12 after this next loss to the Chargers. They're a dog against the Chiefs. They're a favorite against the Colts. And then there's no line for the final game against the Broncos. But they're saying 3 wins in Vegas, dude.
Okay. First off,
I don't think that's their over
listen,
underline, but per point spreads.
Josh, we know what's going to happen. This is going to flip, right? The Chiefs will win it. We know that. But you know what's going to happen to us is that we predicted the way we did, and it's just going to be flipped. Like this just happens to us, Josh. We try. We try.
All
We
right,
truly do.
Ben. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen if our picks are indeed flipped. That means that Patrick Mahomes didn't play a single game this season. That means Travis Kelce didn't play a single
No. What
game
I
this
said, no. I
season.
said flipped after one. So flipped after one. So it's just flipped after one. So Chiefs
Oh,
win the division, but it's
so
flipped.
Kansas City's winning, but it's going to
Yeah.
be Vegas in second, you're saying, and the
Yeah.
Chargers third, and
Yeah.
Denver fourth again.
Which could easily happen.
If Denver finishes fourth, that means that Russell Wilson is indeed washed and there's no coming back. It means that Jerry Jeudy has never lived up to his hype. It means that Javonte Williams probably suffered an injury again, and Sean Payton,
was carried
while
by
he
Drew
may have an
Brees.
offensive genius mind, the defense just didn't hold up this year
No,
for
what
some
it
reason.
means is that Sean Payton was truly carried by Drew Brees all those years.
Or it means that.
It is a question to wonder and ponder.
What does it mean, Ben, if Vegas finishes second?
It means that Ben Bowden needs to really re-engage how he judges teams. No, in general, what that means to me is that means that Jimmy G has either figured it out, like truly he's figured it out, and he's healthy, right? Those two combinations. I think that means that Vegas is running the ball extremely well. I think that means Josh Jacobs,
Just like they did last year. Josh Jacobs
means
led the league in rushing.
that means he probably ran for 1,800 yards, right? 1,700 yards. I think that means that you have Devontae Adams over 1,200 yards. I think that means Hunter Renfro's over 1,000 yards. I think you even see another person, a receiver or tight end with 800 yards. You know, but I think what you see is that Jimmy G has proven the doubters wrong. But again, I think that's so unlikely. I don't see him being healthy throughout the whole year. And to be honest, is there a point when Josh Jacobs and or Devontae Adams say, I'm tired of this kind of feeling and they want to be out and they want to be out? That's the other question you have to ask. Because I could easily see Josh Jacobs being traded. I've heard rumors of Josh Jacobs swap for Barkley from the Giants, which would be a very interesting trade. Not worth it for either team, to be honest.
Yeah,
Maybe for the Giants, but
tough to say.
so
Yeah, I think if Vegas is finishing second, it means that Josh Jacobs is once again having a dominant season. We saw Jimmy G out with the 49ers with Debo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and all these other weapons and have average numbers because they just let the three-way running back system over there basically dominate the offense. So he has Devonta Adams and Hunter Renfrow over here. We mentioned rookie Michael Mayer, who could be an exciting tight end. But I think if they're winning games because Josh Jacobs is once again dominating, and the defense, which has been pretty average, they were 12th in total yards last year, 21st in scoring defense last year, is somehow getting it together.
Crosby has to have a really good
Crosby
year.
has to have like a 15, 16 sack season.
And you're going to have a resurrection of what's his face? Other defensive end.
Chandler Jones.
You're going to have a resurrection of him because let's be honest, the Browns last year, their defense was one pass rusher away, right? They were one good DB away. They were one linebacker away, right? In order to make yourself a great defense, look at all the great defenses back. Remember back in our day, the Baltimore Ravens. What made their defenses so freaking good? And the Steelers, because they were loaded on every single spot. They had two dudes at every spot that could say, I'm going to lock down. And I don't know if we'll ever see that again, but I think that's what the Raiders need to have in order to have a successful year.
Secondary's got to step up too. They were in the bottom third in passing yards allowed too.
That's true. So with that, Josh, is there should we talk about individuals, coaches that we think are on the hot seat or things that we think we want to chat about before we finish up the show?
Man, I think Andy Reid is definitely safe coming off of the Super Bowl.
I think just a little bit.
I think Sean Payton in his first season and just with his background is fine. I think Staley definitely is on the hot seat. He's had two big screw ups in a row.
It's not the hot seat. He's got a gun.
He had the stupid timeout call 2 years ago that allowed the Raiders to win and get into the playoffs over them. He allowed Trevor Lawrence to come back and beat them after throwing 5 picks in the first half of a playoff game. If he makes one more stupid mistake this season that costs them like a playoff appearance or a playoff win, I think he's out. And the Raiders, they've always been short with head coaches. I don't think that Mark Davis would hesitate to let Josh McDaniels go if this season they go like 4 or in this case 3 wins this season. I think that they wouldn't mind showing him the door too, just because of the culture that they got over there.
I think the hottest is obviously Staley. I think you can't it's like baseball. You can't swing at 2 bad pitches and then swing at a 3rd bad pitch and the coach being okay with it, or in this case, the ownership being okay with it. You're in LA. What do we know, Josh? LA is a winner's market, as they would say. You have to win.
Winner's market. Yeah. All eyes are on LA.
And if you can't,
you have Justin Herbert, who's throwing 5,000 yards a season.
Dude, you have him. You have so many. You have Bosa. You have so many.
Joey Bosa. You have Derwin James, I think, right?
Yeah.
You have Khalil Mack in the building now, and Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler, and Mike Williams, and
I mean, I think that
there's talent in the building.
I do agree with you with the Raiders, though. Like, obviously, he probably would get fired if he has a bad year because that's just the Raiders' culture. It's just their thing, So, I think that at the end of the day, I think those 2 are the hottest seats, obviously, and I think that's going to be obvious. I think Andy Reid is just going to drive in the sunset wherever he wants to go. You can come to Cleveland, Andy Reid, if you really want to. I would not be mad at all if you came to Cleveland to coach. Just saying. Let's just put this way that I think Andy Reid has more longevity than certain people that are running in certain important offices of the United States. Just going to say. I'm not going to say who.
Agreed.
I just think he has much more of a ability to lead.
Agreed.
That's our political talk for the day. But let's talk about player. Let's talk about, how about this? Let's talk about who we think. Let's not talk about the best player. We both agree it's Mahomes. Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about a rookie that you think will be a shining bright spot in this division, and let's talk about one player that you think will be a really maybe a comeback player or someone that you think is going to have a good year in this division. For me, I think that this is Russell Wilson's year to rebound. Again, I know he's getting older, but I think this is his year where he's going to rebound, and I think he's going to have a very good year. I think he could throw for almost 4,000 yards. So I'm going to go with Russell Wilson, as well as with him Williams as a running back who missed all of last year. Both of those guys I think are going to have a big comeback type of year for me. And I'm going to say rookie wise, you go ahead with your player pick, and I'll think of a rookie.
Man, player picks, dude. This is tough. I love all the guys that you mentioned. I think that there's guys on other teams too, but as far as breakout player goes, I've been on the Jerry Jeudy train for a while. I thought last year would be the
Yeah.
season, and granted, he did have his best season as a pro, with 67 catches, career high, 972 yards, career high, 6 touchdowns, career high. That was still way less than what I thought. Like, I thought he was going to be a viable, like, round 3, round 4 fantasy football pick last year. And a large chunk of that was due to the way that Russell Wilson played. So if Russell Wilson can even come back to being like the league average quarterback, I think Jerry Jeudy is going to thrive in this offense. Maybe can be a guy that comes out and gets 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns this year. So I'm going to go ahead with my breakout guy to be Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh, awesome. For me, the rookie that I was thinking of, and again, I'm actually gonna go the Raiders. As much as I've been just destroying the Raiders in this topic, I'm gonna go Michael Mayer. Like, I think this dude, out of everyone in this whole division, obviously there's a lot of other rookies we could talk about that are just as talented or even more talented, but I think Michael Mayer is in the perfect opportunity to come in, be a starting tight end, and contribute not only to the run game and blocking, but then to be a pass threat when you have corners and safeties looking at these two receivers and Renfro and Adams. Can you imagine putting 3 on a side, putting Renfro in the slot, Adams, and then you have at tight end, you have Mayer on the same side? What are you going to do? Right. That is a scary combination. And so I think if the Raiders do have a better season than what we're predicting, he's going to be a big part of it. And he's a guy that could make the Pro Bowl as a rookie just because of his, 1,000 yard potential per year. So I'm going to go Michael Mayer.
Very true. The Raiders have had some good tight ends lately, and they've done a good job featuring them getting involved in the offense. And Michael Mayer was getting involved in Notre Dame's offense even from his freshman season. So I do like that one. Just because I've been much higher on him than you in the whole draft process, I got to throw his name out there. I'm looking forward to seeing Quentin Johnston
Of course
on
you
the
are.
field. Regardless if it's him succeeding or failing, I just want to see.
I want him to fail. So, but I'm just kidding.
I just want to see like who was right
That
more
is true.
so. So whether it's him succeeding or failing, the rookie I'm looking forward to seeing the most on the field is Quentin Johnston, opposite Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, with Justin Herbert throwing him the football now. I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. But Michael Mayer would probably be the second guy on my list.
Quentin Johnston, I have nothing against you as a person. I've never met you. I'm just saying you're not in the top 3 of my wide receivers. Just saying. Rookie wide receivers. Just saying. But yeah, I think that's a lot that we've covered. Josh, is there anything else in the AFC West that you would like to cover, or is it pretty cut and dry?
I think it's pretty cut and dry. I think we've pretty much nailed everything. One other thing that I will note, one huge loss to the Chiefs was losing Orlando Brown
Oh
to
yeah, I
the
forgot about that.
Bengals.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mentioned that I think Patrick Mahomes can win no matter who is on his offense, but I think out of all the losses that you look at across the board on each team, I think that losing a tackle
It
like
also
that impactful is
it,
going to be maybe the biggest loss.
it also doesn't help that you decide to pay your quarterback like $500 million, so that didn't help.
And then you also pay your tight end a good chunk of money, and you pay some of your top edge rushers a good chunk of money, and then it's tough to pay everybody, Ben. I think the Chiefs did have a decent offer for him, but Orlando, I think, took less money to go to the Bengals because he really wanted to play left tackle.
That
Really
that
wanted to play
is
left tackle
that is true.
and took less
Uh,
money to do so in Cincinnati. So they're going to miss him. I think
yeah,
Patrick Mahomes will be just fine without him, but
yeah.
it is going to be interesting to see how the offensive line adjusts.
And one thing we will be missing this week is our top 5 things. Again, we're trying to do all these. We'll see how this one goes, and then
Real
we'll
quick,
talk about
top
it.
5 off the cuff, Ben.
Oh,
Let's rank our
why did you
top
do? See, you see what he did here? He waited until I said, "Hey, we're not going to do it," because he wanted
Well,
to be the
we
one that
kind of
put it.
already talked about it, but we didn't really rank it set in stone. But
Son
we'll
of
give the
you.
people a top 5. Okay, we're gonna give the people a top 5
Of course you are.
Pac-12 quarterbacks list.
Oh, why did? Oh, wow.
We've already talked about a lot of the great
Yeah.
ones. I think this is one that we'll probably agree with pretty closely.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'll go number 5. I'm gonna put Cam Rising for the fact that he's been there for like 6 years and is Mr. Consistent. I'm gonna go Cam Rising.
Mr. Consistent, a warrior, a dog, 30 years old. My 5 is also Cam Rising.
We are. This is gonna be the most boring top 5 we've done at all.
No controversy at all.
No controversy. 4 for me. Oh, this is when it gets hard for me. I'm gonna go DJU because I don't think he's shown enough for me to put him in this top 3. I'm gonna go DJU. DJU at 4 for me from Oregon State.
DJU at 4 for you, okay. I gotta pull up the list again just so I can see
Josh has a
everybody
terrible
in front
memory.
of me. I do. I say all the names and then I'm like, wait, what the heck? Who's the quarterback over there? Yeah, I gotta pull it up. Okay, so that's number 5. It's also way easier for me to go like 1 to 5, but
That's true. Yeah.
let's see. Number 4. I'm gonna go ahead with a splash Dante Moore at 4.
You're just
There's some controversy for
dude.
you.
You're gonna be harped by people. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Let's get hurt.
All right, 3 for me is I'm gonna go with who am I gonna go 3? Oh goodness, who do we have left? Who's in the top teams?
Well, I feel like the top 3 in some order are going to be Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix.
I'm gonna go.
But if you want to hear some other
Here we
names,
go.
we got Jaden
No.
Delora.
Shut up.
Have Shador Sanders.
I got this. Shut up. I got this. I'm gonna go 3 Bo Nix. Bo Nix at 3 for me. I just think
same.
that's wrong. Okay. Oh wow, I'm kind of shocked actually. I thought you're really high on Bo Nix, so I thought you were gonna go higher with him.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like you could really go 2, 3 Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I feel like, but I really love what Michael Penix has coming back.
I'm gonna go 2 will be Caleb. I'm kidding. Will be Michael Penix Jr. If I would have done that, I would have been shot. I would have probably been pulled out of this apartment and shot. I'm gonna go Michael Penix Jr. at 2.
All right, Michael Penix Jr. over here too.
And number 1, I'm gonna go the quarterback from Stanford. I'm kidding. No, number 1, we're both gonna go Caleb
Williams.
So that is our top 5 because Josh saved it, and he wants everyone to know that it was not Ben's idea this week; it was Josh's idea because
I was the one that came out with the hot take this time.
Josh wanted to make sure that he was known for this. No, anyways. I hope you guys love this new style of what we're doing. Please let us know in the comments anything that maybe we missed or things that you would like to see in future iterations of this. Next week, we will be actually recording 2 in the same day. So if you watch the video in the future and you notice that we're wearing the same outfits, it's because I'm traveling to America. So
no. Ben's gonna put his hat on forward, and I'm gonna put mine on backwards to throw you guys off. It's another day,
just to mess with you guys. No, in general, that is what will be happening next week. We'll be recording a couple episodes just so that way we have stuff out for you guys. So the hope is we can get this out and you guys really enjoy it. Again, we're not like Johnny and Aaron who can write a freaking 4-paragraph thing for every single team in the NCAA football. I'm sorry. Josh and I are just not like that. Josh maybe more than me, but
what Ben's trying to say is listen to their podcast instead of ours.
No. No, what I'm saying is if you want in-depth analysis, please go check out their stuff on Fifth and Goal.
But I think they're going to be ramping up some previews here as well.
They're also supposedly, this is going to come out actually after their announcement, but supposedly on Friday, which was probably be
today
or
we're recording,
yesterday.
Maybe? Or coming out?
I don't know.
Or yesterday.
Anyways, they're coming out with a big announcement. I don't know what that is. I think it's something to do with football season. So we don't know what's going to be on, so we can check that out. But make sure that. Also, I do want to give a shout out to Ethan Leist. Some of you may know him if you went to Cedarville. He started up his new podcast, or not his new podcast. He's restarting his podcast all about sports. So go check that out if you do get the chance. But anyways, if you've enjoyed watching and listening to this episode, especially if you've been enjoying on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. We love it. We love your support. We want more of it. I tried to rap there and it was really bad. Anyways, we also appreciate you guys listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you share it with your friends and family. And as always, make sure you have a great rest of your weekend. And until next time, we'll see ya.